Now, the Ministry of Finance reporting similar good news. Its mid-year budget snapshot pointing to an uptick in revenue from November through January. To provide more details for us tonight is Financial Secretary Marlon Johnson. Mr. Johnson, it's wonderful having you with us. First of all, though, give us an idea of where things stand at this point, considering it's been nearly a year since our first COVID case and all the subsequent pressure applied on finances.
Well, thank you. Good evening. Pleasure to be here. Right now, we're seeing a bit of a mixed bag. On one hand, we still face a great deal of uncertainty, given all of the sort of variations in COVID and, all of the mutations and other factors that have come into play. We're still not quite convinced and confident that we can say with certainty that the sort of COVID spike in North America is over. But on the other hand, one of the positive developments has been that we've certainly seen a firming of revenue flows in November and December that continues even into January. So we have a mixed bag. We have a lot of uncertainty because of, again, what's happening in COVID, particularly in North America, and the possibility of future spikes there and here. But we also see in positive signs that once the domestic economy got going and once the tourists started to return in limited numbers, we did start to see revenues that were promising and that still are trending very positively.
We're making inroads, admittedly, yes, but are we where we hoped we would have been at this point in the face of COVID? And this considering that we still have limited visitor arrivals, the prevailing fear of increased COVID numbers, and then there are still many people who, if they are at work, not at work for a full week.
So yeah, there are several things to consider. One is certainly we still have a tremendous drive because of the significant unemployment. A lot of the persons who have been laid off or idled, whether they've been employed or self-employed in the tourism trade, many of them haven't been able to return to work as yet. So that still creates significant drag on the economy. But one of the positive things is we have seen that once the domestic economy got going in November and December, we started to see some improvement. So no, we're not where we thought we would be at this particular point. We're still slightly behind in revenues and we're slightly ahead in expenditure. But that gap has certainly closed over the last quarter when compared to the first quarter when we were on a full shutdown and then we saw massive dislocation. So we're not where we would like to be, but we're a lot closer to that particular point than we were 3 months ago when we did our first quarter report.
That said, then, are we on tap then to obtain that budget deficit of no more than $1.3 billion?
Well, one of the positive things that I always refer people back to is that what we are seeing is an execution of the plan that the government put in place that said that we would have a fiscal deficit of around $1.3 billion. We have had to make some incremental changes. We've had to decrease the pace of capital expenditure, and we've had to throttle down a little bit on recurrent expenditure. But because revenue has started to pick up, I can say with a lot more confidence that I believe we will stay within that $1.3 billion deficit as was planned. So, we saw the headlines today of a deficit of just over $700 million. And yeah, that is, noteworthy, but it is in line with what the plan was. And we feel confident that assuming we manage to keep the situation stable, and again, we have to have a stable environment so that we don't have to go back into another shutdown locally. And we hope that the numbers that are on the decline in the U.S. continues. If those factors remain, we believe that, yes, we can stay on track. But the uncertainty really is what happens with COVID.
Well, there you have it from Financial Secretary Marlon Johnson on where things stand on the economic front. Mr. Johnson, again, thanks so much for joining us this evening.